Hey guys, Bound to Divide here. I'm sure by now you guys have all heard the Tinlicker remix of Children. I think it's on #1 on the Beatport charts. So I just thought I would try and remake, a portion of it and kind of deconstruct how it was built and show you guys. Okay, so let's just start off right at the top. I'll just move down through my channels. The first thing is this little sine wave thing. It's pretty quiet. Okay, and how that was made was just with Operator. It's just the default preset with the sine wave, and the attack is just brought up to 2 milliseconds, and then I've got this Valhalla Room reverb on there with these settings. Okay, then next up is this ARP, and this is like kind of the main feature, I guess. And obviously everything's going through the sidechain, so that's why it's pumping. So this is also done in, well, most of the stuff here is done in Serum except for that sine. And the reason why I chose Serum was just because you can get like a little bit tighter with the envelopes and kind of visually shape them. So I just kind of preferred that. And to make this ARP, it's just this basic mini waveform with no unison or anything. Then we've got a filter. So we've set this first envelope to have 409 milliseconds decay, and then dragged it onto the cutoff filter over there and onto the bright white noise, so that it's causing both of these to kind of, attack at the same time. The noise just brightens it up a bit. And then I am automating the decay of the envelope on the channel here, just so that it opens up towards the end. And this ARP is really interesting because it's got this low note over here, this F that you hear. So it's kind of creating this rhythmic kind of down and up beat within the ARP. When I first listened to it, I thought he had a completely different instrument playing this note here. But as I started making the ARP, I noticed that actually that sound was coming directly from the ARP. And then I just decided to accent that with this low ARP note, just so that you can hear it even more. But anyway, back to this ARP over here. We've got a Valhalla Room after that, and just on these settings over here, you can always pause it and copy them if you want. And then I've just got an EQ on there. And that's just kind of taking her out around 1K because it was sort of sticking out of the mix a bit and like sounding a little bit nasal in comparison to the original. So that's that. And then the low ARP note, this one that's kind of accenting that note over there, is the same patch, just with a normal saw wave, because I didn't want to use the exact same saw wave as this one. Otherwise it would probably phase with it or go out of phase and cause some like phasey sounds. So that's just got some unison on it too, to make it a little bit wider. And then it's got some sustain and a bit more release on the envelope. And that's causing it to kind of ring out a bit longer than the other ARP. And you can see the release stage kind of fading out. And then that's assigned to the cutoff filter over here. Okay, then we've got the original sample, and I just literally cut that out of the breakdown from the remix because, it's pretty much just the original song. And I just cut out the low end because there's sub in there, so all I wanted really was the piano. And I originally tried a delay on there, but I don't think they did have a delay or anything on there, so that's disabled. You can always delete that. And then we've got the respace, and that you don't really pick up on when you originally listen to it, but if you pay attention to the original, you'll hear that there's kind of like some Reese bass filling out the mid-range. And that's just copying the bass line pretty much, the notes of the bass line. And let me just close that one. How I made this, if I just turn off all the effects here. Yeah, we've just got an octave down because I had the notes too high, so rather than dragging the notes down, I just went down on an octave here. I've got a saw wave with 4 voices of unison and 0.16 detune, and that sounds like that. Oh, and obviously we've got this filter that's following this envelope, so just drag envelope 1 on there, give it 1 second of attack, but make this curve like more sort of like a concave shape. And then, yeah, assign that to the filter. And then I've just EQ'd it to take out all the sub. And just boosted that range over there. Then I wanted it to be like wider and more back in the mix. I didn't want it to be like all up front. So this chorus kind of pushes it out to the side and makes it almost like a bit more dirty. Yeah, almost like smears it, which is how the original sounds. And then some reverb to smear it even more. And then just some light auto pan. Just to have like it kind of swooshing from side to side slightly. Then I've got this mid bass. And the mid bass is also like another big part of what they do. I feel like Tinlicker always has bass lines that like span multiple octaves. And so if you look at the MIDI of this, it's the same as the MIDI of this, except we're jumping between the octaves. So let me just close this. So we're going, you know, C down to C and back up to C, and then we're just basically jumping up and down. So you can always copy that if you're remaking this yourself. This is the MIDI. And that kind of grooves really nicely with the kick. And how I made this, we've got this Valhalla Room, Saturator and EQ. I'm just going to turn those off. So a very, very basic patch. It's just a saw wave with an envelope set to 366 milliseconds of decay and no sustain. And then a filter, this MG Low 18. Assign that to the filter, dragging and dropping it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and then obviously this drive over here, just to give it a bit of warmth and distortion. I'm just going into this EQ8 to cut out the sub because I've got another instrument doing the sub. And then also cutting out a bit of the highs. Then we're going into a saturator. And then Valhalla Room. And that's just giving it a bit of space. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the mid bass. Then we've got the sub. Okay, I'm not 100% sure if they have a rolling sub in there like this. But yeah, like my ear isn't that very good. But to me it sounded like there was something going do 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 do. And I'm not sure if it was coming from the ARP or from the mid bass or what, but I kind of just thought the sub is probably the best place to do this because it's going to be like a more consistent sub if we do like a rolling bass line down there. It'll like fill out the low end more. So I just decided to do that. And that sounds like this. And if I just turn off the saturator and the EQ, You can see I basically made this by just duplicating the mid bass and then using the original patch. That's why the saturator is still there. I actually forgot to take the saturator off, but I think it sounds cool. So here I've just used another different saw wave because I don't want, if any notes landing on the same octave, I don't want, because the patches are so similar, I don't want them to like start to phase with each other. So I've just used a different waveform here. And we've got the envelope 1 with a bit of a shorter decay, 278 milliseconds. That's assigned to the cutoff filter here. And it's just doing that. It's a really, really simple patch. And then I just boosted the sub a bit and gave it some saturation. And yeah, together with the bass line and the kick, that's how they sound. So yeah, nice groovy kind of low end for the track. And then for the kick, I actually sampled the kick out of the original track, just because if you go off and try and find the same kick, chances are you'll spend like 5 hours looking for it and you'll never find it. So yeah, if you like a kick from a track, the best thing to do is to just sample it. And you can see how I did that over here. So I kind of cut the kick out of a section, and without the EQ on it, you can hear that the kick's got actually quite a bit of noise. There's a hat there, there's a bit of the mid bass, a bit of the arp in there. So I just cut out everything but the sub and then used that from this sample and duplicated it to this track, and then EQ'd this, shortened it because all I wanted was just the mid-range from this kick, and the mid-range is kind of sits around this portion. This is just like a subby tail, so I cut out the lows and the highs from it, and then duplicated it again, made it even shorter because all I wanted was the click, and then just high passed it so that all I'm getting is the click of the kick. And then if you put them together, you have a kick. It's not the best attempt at sampling it, because if you look at my kick, you'll see it's kind of got this weird section over here, which isn't ideal, so you'd probably want to keep trying until you got them nicely lined up and in phase. And then with the kick, I also added this EQ because you can almost still hear like a bit of the original bass in there, and doing that kind of takes it out. And then I've got this clap over here, and that's made up of quite a few layers. We've got a 909 clap, and I've got a compress on there just because it sounded almost like the kick was compressing the clap in the original, just a tiny bit. So I'm not sure if they do this, but thought it kind of sounded good. So that's just a 909 clap with a tiny boost over there. And then this is just Nora on pure Zambia clap, sampled from another track too. That sounds like that. Similar EQ, just some of the sub cut out of there. And this is from one of my tracks, this parabola clap. Should have probably cut out the lows from that. And then I've got another 909 clap. This one's just wider, and it's turned really far down, you can't even hear it. And that's also pre-shifted, like you'll see here's where the beat is, and I've just shifted it before and then sidechained it pretty hard because I just want the wideness of this clap, the initial hit. And together those sound like this. Okay, And then for the 16th note hat, I tried a few different ones out, but the thing that came the closest was actually this gated noise loop that I got from Inama's course on Sonic Academy. And I just basically looped the first section because his original sample kind of opens up the decay over time. So it's literally just noise with a gate on it. Oh, and then I just set it to transient mode and kind of into this arrow and just brought down the decay on it so that it's a bit tighter. If I set it all the way up, it's a bit too sustained, so sounded better around 40. And then just another little 16th hat, and that's just a sample, and in the MIDI you can see I've kind of made it so that it copies this gated loop. The gated loop kind of pumps up over each 16th note, gets louder, so I just copied that with velocity over here. And then cut off the very high end because it was a bit harsh, and compared to the original I think it didn't need that much high end. So that kind of just gives the noise a bit more of a transient. Okay, and then we've got this hat, which is just a 909 hat. 909 hats originally sound pretty like thick, so I just cut out all that mid-range and then gave it a bit of a chorus to try and widen it a bit, but that wasn't very successful, and I noticed in the original the hat was actually quite wide, so I just duplicated it and then put it on 100% reverb with Valhalla Room and just a really short decay, and that kind of together widens it. Okay, so that's that, and again all together sounds like this. Okay, yeah, so that's that. I'm going to be putting the project file for this on my Patreon, so you can download it and kind of just learn from it if you want to. You obviously can't take the samples and use them for yourself or anything, but yeah, you can check it out if you want, if you're part of my Patreon. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you at the next tutorial.